From experiencing one of the most epic falls from grace in F1 history to a long run as Red Bull's golden boy, here's how F1 drivers reacted to Daniel Ricciardo's return. The Honey Badger has been regarded as one of the most well-loved figures in Formula One, so it's no surprise his sudden retirement in 2022 after a series of disappointing performances left fans devastated. Ricciardo can be credited for introducing the European passion for car racing to America through Formula One's insanely lucrative collaboration with Netflix for the hit series Drive to Survive, in which Daniel's one of the heavily featured drivers. And it's easy to see why he was so helpful in ensuring racing really took off in the States. He's a happy-go-lucky, easy-going, fun-loving Aussie with a megawatt smile that can brighten up any room at all. But like every important figure, Ricciardo's success graph hasn't been straightforward. His career took off with a smashing start in the 2012 to 2013 season when he drove for Red Bull's feeder team alphatauri, nabbing a handful of podium places and even P1s. Things were running smoothly until Daniel switched from alphatauri to Renault, which marked the start of a series of very unfortunate events during that race season. He went from being a top 5 driver to dropping down to 15th, 16th, and even 20th place. This, paired with consistent car troubles and not being able to keep up with fellow Renault driver Nico Hülkenberg, did a number on Ricciardo's morale. That's exactly why switching teams again didn't do much to improve his performance in the seasons ahead. If anything, the 2020 to 22 seasons only seemed to draw in more doom and gloom for Danny during his time racing for McLaren. Despite being struck by disasters one after another and constant accusations of finally being washed, the F1 world definitely felt the weight of his absence. It was extremely overwhelming for the fans because they couldn't accept the fact that he was stepping down. Danny Ric, on the other hand, was never one to be daunted. Even in the days directly following his announcement that he won't be on the 2023 grid, he showed his usual unfailing optimism and hinted at a return, but admitted he didn't know when it would happen. Either way, it's clear the Aussie driver's talent has gotten better during his time away from the public eye. Red Bull's principal Christian Horner, a longtime ally of Ricciardo, says Daniel had been performing beautifully in their test laps for alphatauri as a reserve driver. He hasn't spent much time recovering from the stress of race car driving and instead has opted to retrain in practice in the top-of-the-line simulation system Red Bull has perfected for its reserve drivers. As fate would have it, though, just as Danny Ric got over the speed bumps of bad performances, AlphaTauri's Rookie of the Season, Nick De Vries, started experiencing some serious turbulence during races and ended up dropping the ball hard in the past couple of races. Because of that, Red Bull lined up their old boy again for the race grid and announced Ricciardo's return to the team as a full-time driver. But how does the grid feel about his return? Well, for the most part, things are pretty quiet on the driver's front. The grid's pretty heavily engaged in a debate sparked by our two favorite championship rivals, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Red Bull's drivers have been on the podium consecutively in the 2023 season, winning either first or second place in race after race, and with a car like theirs, it really is no surprise they're getting that far. But the thing is, they've started working on next year's car already, which is something Hamilton has issues with. He claims that allowing Red Bull to start working on a car for next season is absolutely unfair, considering every other team is still perfecting their engines and machinery for the current one. It's a bad look for a team that's already earned a reputation for being brutal. After all, the team's decision to axe De Vries so quickly into his very first season as a driver infuriated the fans because the poor lad wasn't even given the chance of a learning curve. Even David Croft, the beloved Sky Sports commentator, better known as Crofty, has mixed emotions over Daniel's return, saying he'd be over the moon to see his old friend back on the grid. But the fact that it happened at the cost of De Vries' career was unfair to the younger rookie. Helmut Marko, a racing legend and present-day strategy advisor to Red Bull, knows Danny very well and is thrilled to be working with him again. The two struck up quite a friendship during Daniel's first run with Red Bull, and Ricciardo regards Marko as one of his major driving inspirations. Despite the silence from his fellow drivers, Daniel was known for his friendliness with almost everyone on the grid, except for his old McLaren teammate Lando Norris, who had beaten him fair and square a lot of times during his terrible turn with the Orange team. On the other hand, though, he's an easygoing sort of guy, and has been interacting positively with pretty much every driver, from Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, to even the surly Dutchman Max Verstappen, to name a few. His return to the world of racing could reignite his old rivalry with Lando Norris, who's doing very well for himself lately, coming in at P4 during his last race. That must sting a bit for Daniel, who famously expressed his dislike for the bold young racer during their time as teammates, and Drive to Survive certainly capitalized off this rivalry for the ratings. But in the famously unpredictable world of F1, who knows which way the wind blows or the car turns? But what if fans think of the whole scenario? Well, it's a whole lot of information to process at once. The Danny Ric Stan accounts were absolutely elated. Some claimed they saw this coming from the very beginning, since Daniel didn't exactly say he was retiring or not, and also because he never lost his old chin-up and carry on as best as you can attitude, even in the face of massive failures. Hell, even devoted fans of teams like Ferrari and McLaren are thrilled to see the veteran driver back on track, and said how much they've missed his sunshiny presence on the grid. He's proven himself to be a rare kind of driver that everyone loves to see winning. Have you ever heard of a person getting upset over a Daniel Ricciardo win? Absolutely never. Everyone's just overjoyed at the idea that the honey badger has come up for air, and even more, considering there's a chance we'll be getting to see his famous shoeies, the traditional Aussie celebratory swig of champagne out of the shoe you've been wearing. And videos and photos of Ricciardo's glory days have been resurfacing across Twitter. From his famous win at the legendary Monaco Grand Prix at the Emilia-Romagna Stadium at Monza, Italy, to the dizzying urban labyrinth in Baku, Azerbaijan. So it's clear this is a man of great talent, but will he live up to his glory days as an up-and-coming 20-something at Red Bull? This is why some still worry that Daniel's performance will yet again disappoint everyone. We've already seen how trigger-happy Red Bull can get when they think a driver is falling off in terms of ranking. So many viewers are debating whether this is Ricciardo's swan song as a driver. After all, he's jumping back behind the wheel for the sister team of a franchise that's thrown out drivers mid-season multiple times, and had no issue swapping out a rookie for a veteran without even giving the former a chance to prove his abilities. So this is a make-or-break scenario for Ricciardo, which depends entirely on how he responds to the stress of being thrown back into the racing game and at the mercy of the notoriously ruthless Red Bull team. But like I mentioned before, Red Bull's dealing with a formidable machine in the 2023 season, so it's incredibly likely that Danny Ric will find the car suited perfectly to him. Fans are optimistic he won't face the engine troubles he did in the past, and will continue to beat his Ferrari rivals in the race to defeat Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion. Either way, the Formula One world never fails to amp up the shock factor, and Daniel Ricciardo's return was definitely an unexpected but incredible surprise. So, from a long run as Red Bull's golden boy, to contending with loads and loads of disappointment, that was how drivers reacted to Daniel Ricciardo's return.